TJIF, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Joy Reid Show. I've got my tea here ready to go. My tea matches my outfit. I guess that's on purpose because it's all gear. Thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate everybody that's in the chat already loading in. Appreciate each and every one of you. We got a here we go from Nancy C. Hello to everybody that is also on YouTube. The Twitchies, a small but mighty army of Twitch people. We appreciate you guys. Welcome to the show as well as, of course, our LinkedIn fam, our Facebook fam, our Substack fam, and those who listen on audio platforms. We appreciate everybody. The last time I checked in and told you guys that YouTube, we were at 435,000 subscribers. Now we're at 436. Last time we checked in on Substack, it was about just short of 210,000. We are now well over 210,000. Our Twitch army growing to now, what are we at? Like 294 Twitchies. It's a small army. They're small. They're small but mighty. They're small but mighty.
But they're dedicated, though.
They're dedicated. About 26,000.
Dedicated soldiers. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Jason saying good evening. Also, the Facebook fam. I have about 600,000 Facebook followers on my Facebook fan page, but the specific Joy Reid Show Facebook fam is 26,000, I think. So we're growing. We're new. We're still a baby. We're still a toddler. We're still growing, but we appreciate it. We are on a march to get to 500,000 YouTube subs by our anniversary, which is June 9th. I can't believe it's going to literally be a year since we started this podcast. June 9th, we'll be 1 year old. That's what I'm saying. We're a baby. We will be 1 year old on June 9th. We have something really special planned for that week, which that's gonna be a tease. I'm not gonna tell you what that is yet.
Yeah, don't get Sean.
I'm not gonna tell you yet. No, because Sean will get mad at me. Sean's like, don't be telling everybody everything. I'm not gonna do that. But we have something really big. We're planning a lot of really great stuff for our anniversary. It's our TJRS anniversary, which is coming up. And so we're trying to get to 500K on YouTube. Let's set a goal of getting to 250 on Substack. I mean, why not? And if we can even get to 1,000 on Twitch, I'll feel so good because I love our little Twitch army. They're adorable. The Twitchies they've got emotes now, so they can make emote faces.
Oh, we got to work. That's 8 weeks to get 750 Twitchies. That's a lot of work.
We can do it. The Twitchies are amazing. Everybody, please hit like and subscribe. The Twitch army is cute. They're adorable. And they have little emotes now that's like a little face. It goes, hey, when they're happy. So we love them. And so we try to keep them happy. So they'll go, hey. We love it. It is Friday. Happy Passover to everybody who is celebrating Passover, which goes all the way through the 9th. That is next week. And also happy Good Friday to those who are in the Easter tradition. I know people are always like, why do they call it good? It's weird, right? That given what it commemorates. But, that is actually an English translation of what the rest of the world actually mainly calls Holy Friday. It's in the United States that we call it Good Friday, the sort of the British and American custom, but we're not saying it's good, but it's Good Friday. It's the Friday before Easter. Hope you guys got your Easter baskets and everything all in-house. Nala, the dog's Easter basket is already in-house. The humans have not gotten theirs yet, but Nala has hers ready to go. It's got all sorts of dog treats in it. And so hopefully she'll enjoy that on Easter because, we got to be good dog parents. We got a big show tonight. Our buddy Dean Obadala will be here in the second hour of the show. We're really excited about that. We have a former State Department Undersecretary for Arms Control. So y'all be good. We're going to have company. Be good in front of company. We got lots of great guests coming on. Imara Jones, a great trans journalist, is coming on shortly. But we're going to get right to this open because the big news on today is that Iran shot down a U.S. fighter jet, an F-15. Here was the Al Jazeera report on that.
We're dealing with right now is a very significant event. The first time that an American fighter jet is being hit, at least this is what we were having also pictures through the Iranian television of the remainings of the fighter jet, and that 2 American pilots are missing inside the Iranian territories, and that operations are ongoing. Now, the Iranian television just announced also that they are putting 10 billion two-mans to anyone who can lead to the pilots. So they're asking people, calling on people to be part of the search operation to get the American pilots. Of course, this would be a changing point in this war because it would mean for the first time that if the Iranians are able to get the American pilots, then this is the first time that the Iranians will have American prisoners of war during this war.
That's scary. Donald Trump here in Jimmy Carter territory. There was some reporting earlier today that one of the pilots, these F-15s, carry 2 pilots, and one of them has definitely been recovered. Just to show you guys sort of, this is the area. You can see this map. You know, I love a map. This is the area, the Kurdistan province is around where this plane was shot down. You can see now the geography there. There's the Gulf. There's the Strait of Hormuz, which is the little bend. Above is Iran. Below is the UAE, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. So you can see that's the geography that we're talking about there. So if they went down, it would be somewhere in that area. It's a pretty scary situation for those pilots. Hopefully, the second pilot will be recovered beforehand, because they're essentially offering a reward, the Iranians, for any information on that. Let me show you something that I got from a source earlier today. Spoke with a source who has a friend in Dubai. And these are the safety alerts that Americans are getting in their phones if they are in Dubai right now, which used to be one of the safest places to be in the country. The alert started out in the morning saying public safety alert, you know, just do your normal activities, all good. Then all of a sudden it went emergency, and then it went, you know what? Seek a safe place inside of a secure building. Stay away from open areas. Stay away from the windows. Those are the kind of alerts people are getting that are just back to back to back to back to back. So it's getting bad. Iran has also made a claim that 37 U.S. officers were killed in a bomb attack on a gathering of officers in UAE, although no U.S. media is reporting that or has verified that. So we're going to have a lot more on the Iran situation later in the show, including the math that ain't mathing for Donald Trump and his new forever war, as Trump seeks a record-shattering new amount of money for the Pentagon. The peace guy wants a lot more money for the Pentagon. We're going to talk about that in hour 2. But of course, the other big story this week that we did a breaking news live on yesterday, and thanks to all who tuned in for that, was the firing of Pamela Jo Bondi of the state of Florida as Attorney General. Her replacement for now is her deputy Todd Blanche, Trump's former criminal attorney from the hush money trial, the guy who helped lose that case. He also happens to be the guy who visited Ghislaine Maxwell for a secret meeting, after which there were suddenly no more inconvenient leaks to the Wall Street Journal, like that birthday book leak that probably came from her world. So these are the 2 big stories that we're covering on today, because what Donald Trump is facing right now are his polls are on the decline. He's in the 30s when it comes to people's assessment of the economy. He's in the 40s at best, even in Fox News polls. His overall approval is way down. And the people that he hired, the genius cast of television hosts, frequent television guests like Pam Bondi, loyalists, RFK Jr., this cast of characters, RFK Jr. presiding over rampant measles outbreaks, disease outbreaks, things that we haven't seen before. Like he always says, like you've never seen before. We're getting disease like we've never seen before. Just saw a note that CBS is recalling eye drops. We can't trust the FDA. We certainly can't trust the Transportation Security Administration. It's scary to fly. There's an incompetent running that agency. There's an incompetent frat boy running the Pentagon. We're going to talk a little bit later about his insanely racist running of the Pentagon, but also insanely incompetent and stupid. So we're not doing well. Donald Trump, there's no metric by which Donald Trump is winning right now. He is not winning the war. He is not winning on the economy. He's not even winning with his own base. He's not winning on the Epstein files. He didn't deliver on that. It's hard to think of a promise that he's kept. And his base has noticed that. And on Iran, I was listening to a bunch of interviews over the weekend by a guy named Professor Robert Pape, who we're going to try to get on the show. And he says that Donald Trump will want to try to signal that the Iran war is over. And he did this before Donald Trump did his address. And he says a political declaration does not end a war when the underlying strategic reality remains unchanged. Iran has already demonstrated the ability to exert control over roughly 20% of the world's oil flows, not by closing the Strait of Hormuz, but by making it unreliable. That power does not disappear if the United States steps back, meaning Donald Trump put his hand into a hornet's nest and he can't pull it out. But on this question of Pamela Joe Bondi, let me introduce our really great panel to talk about her aspect of it, which actually is related to the Iran aspect of it, as you guys heard Lev Parnas talk about yesterday when we had our conversation in our live. Let's bring Lev Parnas in now, our great friend from Lev Remembers, along with former federal prosecutor and former counsel to the House Judiciary Committee, Melanie Sloan. Thank you both for being here.
Nice to be with you.
Thanks for having me, Joy.
Yeah, great to see you both. I'm going to start with you, Lev. Thank you again for doing that live with us yesterday on that breaking news that Pam Bondi is out. Has anything changed? Because we're now seeing some reporting that she may have tried to beg to stay. What have you got on that?
Well, yeah, she definitely wanted to stay. She wanted to stay, I think, till the summertime. I think some of that reporting is correct, what I'm hearing also. But Trump, like I said, he needed her for not only to give red meat to his base, because he needed to something, but he also, needed to change the news cycle in a very major way because of what we're seeing play out today. What the hornet's nest that you were talking about that he knocked over in Iran, it's just the beginning of the things that are transpiring there. Like you said, it's not just, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
I was saying it's not that they just control the 20% of the oil of oil, but it's just the United States and our allies that are suffering because the Russians are having their oil freely go through there without having any restrictions. The Iranians are also, he's lifted the sanctions on them. The Chinese are getting their oil. It's just that our allies are being told that they have to go in there and try to get it themselves, or the United States, but the American consumer is the one that's paying the price at the pump.
Yeah, the oil prices are through the roof. Let me go to you. And thank you for being here. And we appreciate your presence, Melanie, because I want to, for a moment, come off of Pam Bondi for just one moment and talk about her replacement. So Todd Blanche, who I got to see in action in person when I attended the penultimate day of the hush money trial. Not super impressive, at least to me. He did not win that case, but Donald Trump clearly trusts him a lot. I want you to listen to what he said on stage at CPAC, which I think is alarming. And I want to get, as a former federal prosecutor, what you think of it. Here's Todd Blanche.
The things that are happening, there is not a single man or woman at the Department of Justice who had anything to do with those prosecutions.
How many have been canned?
Over 200. Over 200 either left before we came in because they knew it was coming, or were fired, or took early retirement. They are no longer employed by this department. And when it comes to the FBI, which takes a lot of criticism, especially because of what happened over the past several years, Director Patel has cleaned house there too. There isn't a single man or woman with a gun, federal agent, still in that organization that had anything to do with the prosecution of President Trump.
So, Melanie, yesterday Lev described this as a Maduro-style regime change, meaning it's the same regime. You just remove the head of it, but the underboss is the same as the old boss. This guy sounds like he's just as much into retribution as Pam Bondi was.
Oh, he may be even more into retribution than Pam Bondi was. I think it's entirely possible. I don't think he's going to be able to get retribution any more than Pam Bondi was, because one, they've lost most of the decent lawyers at the Department of Justice, and they have like the D team to prosecute those cases. And secondly, those cases aren't real, so judges and juries are rejecting them in any case. You could have the best prosecutor in the world, and it wouldn't matter if you have literally no case, which is what we've seen with Jim Comey and Letitia James and Jerome Powell. They're just crazy cases. So I think that Mr. Trump is going to be sadly disappointed. He takes out Bondi because he thinks that she hasn't gone after his enemies enough. And then he brings in Blanche, and I don't think he's going to see any difference. But this is what happens in the Trump administration, in Trump 1 and Trump 2. Remember Jeff Sessions, the first attorney general, who Trump was beloved. That's where Stephen Miller, first began working. And yet it took almost no time before Sessions, he lost his job in about a year or two. So it's impossible to please Trump in the as the attorney general. And even though he has a great relationship with Blanche, I think he will inevitably be dissatisfied there too.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have actual crimes in order to prosecute people. I don't think
Actual
Donald Trump
crime.
understands
And,
that.
this issue about the cleaning house of the FBI, I mean, what is not mentioned, right by Blanche there is that there are numerous lawsuits by FBI agents suing the Department of Justice and suing the FBI for their termination. And in fact, we have a complete joker, Kash Patel, as the head of the FBI, and that shouldn't make anybody in America feel safer.
Yeah, they can't find Nancy Guthrie. 180-something-year-old woman goes missing. They can't figure out where to find her. We said it yesterday. Twitter will probably locate this poor woman before any of the FBI do, because all the competent people have been fired because they had the nerve to, investigate Donald Trump's crimes, which is their job. Lev, let's talk about some of the people. You talked about it yesterday. I want to bring it to those who didn't make it on the live yesterday. This is A5J. So these are the people who you said Pam Bondi is the sort of, worm on the end of the hook. But the thing that Donald Trump is really concerned about is not so much her. They needed the distraction. They needed the story to be about Pam Bondi. She's filling up some airtime and some headspace, for the media. But these other people that are on the screen right now, there's the labor secretary whose husband is apparently a problem. He can't go into the building because of sexual harassment issues. Not in trouble because of what you see below her, which is these incredibly racist ad campaigns that she ran on social media, where she essentially said, that's what America looks like. And if you don't look like that, sorry for you. There's her, there's Bondi, who's already out, and then there's Tulsi Gabbard. Who on this list of the last two remaining, the labor secretary and Gabbard, are in the most trouble, jeopardy?
Well, the labor secretary is an easy one. That's that could be any day. That's not a major announcement for him to go. He could replace that. But Tulsi, as I've been telling you, is a major issue. Tulsi, because Tulsi, first of all, is a separate a separate part of the fraction that's happening in Mega, which is part of the Tucker Carlson group, which is going heads up right now with the Laura Loomer group, which is completely dividing Mega. You have, Alex, what's his name? Not Stone, Alex.
Alex Jones?
Jones, yes. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I keep Alex Jones out there right now, literally saying that Donald Trump is ill and needs intervention.
Yeah, he
So,
said Trump is over. We need to feel sorry for him. He made it sound like he thinks he's dying.
yeah, he actually was talking about, like, our friend Waj talks about the cankles. Did you see that? He was talking about his cankles. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, they're all coming to roost. And but I think that Tulsi Gabbard is somebody that is really on the verge of leaving. But there's major conversations because, like I said, she has a lot to do with not only the second fraction, but also with what's happening behind the scenes. Her and Ratcliffe working on giving Trump some sort of a way to be able to nationalize, or try to at least nationalize, the elections with what's happening in Georgia and the election results she's working on. But also, I just wanted to quickly mention, because Todd Blanche, I know him very well, better than most. He was my lawyer at some point. He was also represented my co-defendant when I got rid of him. So I went to bat with him plenty of times. And Todd Blanche is, and what I'm hearing from my sources is that that's what we talked about yesterday, where Pam Bondi was just a distraction, because Todd Blanche, first of all, he's going to be there for 210 days. 210 days, we're coming up to the midterms. Yesterday, he came out, and I think on one of the Fox shows, he basically said there's nothing else to talk about with the Epstein files. We're done. The investigation's over. This is another delayed distraction, and now they're throwing out names like Alina Habba. They're throwing out names. These are all distractions, and these are all basically to keep wag the dog type of a situation, because the real problem what he's having is Tulsi Gabbard, the Iran war, and those two major things that are right now unraveling, and he has no control. And you could even see that with remember me and you spoke about Susie Wiles. Remember her? Now she came out with another interview saying that all of a sudden now, people in Trump's world are giving Trump more of a rosy picture on what's happening with the war, and that's because, as I told you earlier, her and Stephen Miller are going heads up, and Stephen Miller is telling Trump this is keep going, doubling down, everything's good with Iran, while Susie Wiles is trying to get an exit as quick as possible. One of the people that's trying to leave.
And let's also just
Interesting.
keep in mind
Please.
that no one can get confirmed as attorney general right now. No one that Trump wants to put in, right? So he's got Todd Blanche in there, and he's going to do what he's been doing at the U.S. attorney's offices around the country. Just keep putting people in without going for a confirmation because he can't get the confirmation. Tom Tillis, senator from North Carolina, said today, unless you say flat out that January 6th, if you tell the truth about January 6th, he's not going to vote to confirm you. And Trump won't put anybody in who won't lie about January 6th. So that's just a line in the sand. We can't possibly get a confirmation there.
And Melanie, is it possible, Lev talked about the 220 days. What are the rules? Donald Trump is the guy who likes to use the interim appointment so that he doesn't have to, as you said, deal with the confirmation process. Could he literally just leave him there until further notice?
Here's the problem. No, you can't just leave him there until further notice. But then Trump goes ahead and does it anyway. And does the Senate do anything about it? If we look at what's happened at these U.S. attorneys' offices around the country, we've seen federal judges coming in routinely to say you can't do what you're doing. And refusing to recognize them and installing other U.S. attorneys, which then the Trump administration immediately fires. So we're already seeing him do things that are completely unconstitutional. And it will be a big question. What will the Senate do if Trump just leaves somebody in there who's an acting attorney general? And, he could always, after Todd Blanche, he could put in somebody else. But in any event, Tom Tillis will be gone anyway. He's retiring. It's only too bad that he didn't show this level of backbone, while they were doing the confirmations time around. Him and Joni Ernst, really. But given the situation, we should expect to see Todd Blanche and all the names that are floated. They're just going to be floated because nothing's going to happen there.
Yeah, well, Tom Tillis, you're right. It's very belated spine that he's showing. But the good thing about retiring as a United States senator is you don't actually have to do it until January. He's there through the election.
No, he's there, but it just means, they can't, that's why Trump won't be able to put anybody in.
Exactly.
Right? That's why there won't be a confirmation because Trump, he's been making anybody who comes to the Department of Justice in order to get hired there, you have to take a loyalty oath now. And as do federal judges, he's requiring loyalty oaths and they are asked questions about January 6th. If you don't agree with him that it was fraudulent, that he won the election, you can't get a job. So he's certainly not going to put in an attorney general who's not going to take his stance on that he won the election. And yet you have Tillis say, well, I won't confirm them. And obviously no Democrat will either. So I think that we will not see another attorney general nominee for quite some time. But, leaving Todd Blanche there, that's not great for the Department of Justice either. Obviously he, as Lev well pointed out, he's just a Trump. I want to say a lapdog, but he's also a little more than
more. You're right.
Right.
Melanie, she's trying to be politically correct. Go ahead.
Politically correct. He's a junkyard dog for Trump.
Junkyard dog. I agree.
There is one Democrat who would vote to confirm him, and that will be John Fetterman. I'm quite sure John Fetterman would vote for a pile of warm poo if Donald Trump told him to. I want to, because on this point that Melanie just made, Lev, I think it's important to stick with this point for a moment. There's a reason Donald Trump wants anyone at the Justice Department to swear on a Trump Bible that he won the election in 2020, right? Because his plan, which Tulsi Gabbard is at the center of, and Pam Bondi would have been at the center of, and Todd Blanche will be at the center of, is to try to prove in retrospect this falsity that the election was stolen and that there was foreign interference. This is key to his attempts to satisfy John Roberts at the Supreme Court that there's a sufficient foreign emergency, a sort of foreign attack on the United States election system that will let him nationalize the election. Isn't that the point?
You connected the dots perfectly, Joy. Just to give you another hint of what's going on during this whole fiasco of firing Bondi with him going out making a speech. The other thing he did, which the news hardly reported on, was he took sanctions off Delcy Rodriguez in Venezuela, the current president. This is all part of the game. He's also, trying to get one of Raul, I forgot his last name, Raul, I don't want to mispronounce it, but another gentleman that is right now arrested in Venezuela to be brought in here to be able to give testimony that the elections, that the Smartmatic machines going all the way back to the Chavez regime, that there was some sort of interference. And that is exactly what Tulsi Gabbard is working on. And that is why she is such a major issue with what's happening. I think Tulsi, I'll be honest with you, the more I'm hearing from insiders and the things, I think Tulsi's using this. This is a strategic play that's being played out. That's why first with Kent coming out, doing what he did, then going on Tucker Carlson, and now Tulsi coming out and, playing basically, because Trump did give her the opportunity to resign and do a soft landing, and she refused. And now she's going heads up with Laura Loomer. So it's like an ongoing situation right there between it. But you're right, 100%, because that's Trump's one thing. Originally when we were talking about when he was putting ICE all over the place, we were talking about him doing the insurrection law, him trying to do something like that to stop the elections. But what happened in Minnesota, really was a shock. They had to take a step back, and that's when Plan B kind of went into effect. Where how can we federalize? How can we nationalize? How can we basically what Putin told him at one time, how can we count the election? Because Putin told him it's not who votes for you, it's who counts the votes. And, that's what Trump is really trying to figure out how to do.
And the gentleman you were talking about, his name is Raul Gorin.
Thank you, Joy.
Yeah, he's a Venezuelan lawyer and businessman who serves as the president of a company called Global Vision, billion-dollar money laundering and corruption scheme he is accused of being a part of. And to Lev's point, they're trying to flip him to try to concoct this cockamamie case that to try to prove that the very dead Hugo Chavez rigged the election against Trump. And it is for the purposes of stealing the next election. I'll be very clear about that. I want to go back, though, for a moment, Melanie, and talk about some of the potential consequences for the people who have served Donald Trump in this regime. Pam Bondi has been very much out front praising Trump, big sycophant. But there was a moment during the hearings when she went before Capitol Hill, which is probably what got her fired, right? She embarrassed herself and the administration in front of the world on Capitol Hill. But this was the moment. I just want you to take a look at this, because this is the moment when she was accused by a member of lying under oath. This is A6, Jason.
Just lied under oath. There is ample evidence in the Epstein file.
Don't you ever accuse me of a crime.
I believe you just lied under oath. And this is all on videotape. You said there's no evidence of a crime. I'm showing you, here is a witness statement who called into the FBI's Threat Operations Center. He drove Donald Trump around in a limo. He overheard what Donald Trump said to Jeffrey on his cell phone. He was so angry, he was gonna stop the limo and hurt Donald Trump. And he met a girl who said she was raped by Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. She later had her head blown off, and officers at the scene said that could not have been suicide. No one at the Department of Justice interviewed this witness. You need to interview this witness immediately. Epstein should rot in hell, so should the men who patronized his operation. And as we sit here today, there are over 1,000 sex trafficking victims, and you have not held a single man accountable. Shame on you. If you had any decency, you would resign right after this hearing concludes.
The gentleman has expired.
Well, it turned out she didn't have to resign. She got fired. That was Congressman Ted Lieu of California. And Melanie, do you foresee potential legal jeopardy for somebody like a Pam Bondi if we ever have a normal Department of Justice again?
It's very hard to prosecute someone under what's 18 USC 1001, lying to Congress, right? And it has a 5-year statute of limitations. So it depends when we get the Department of Justice back, when the Democrats are back in control. There are plenty of Trump appointees who should be hauled in for lying to Congress. I mean, they would hardly be Pam Bondi would hardly be alone. And sadly, right now, I don't think she's going to suffer a lot of consequences. She's going to go out and make a fortune like so many other former Trump people. And while she wanted to stay as Attorney General, he's already said she's going to go and find a great job in the private sector. And we're likely to see her go into the private sector. And because she's maintaining her relationship with Trump, pull in literally hundreds of thousands of dollars a month from single clients in order to call Trump and call Todd Blanche, with whom she also has a good relationship, so that they can get, say, the antitrust settlements they want. And she's just going to be landing on her feet, making literally millions of dollars, probably per month, in a completely corrupt way. So, nobody should be shedding tears for Pam Bondi.
Yeah, yesterday, Lev, you just confirmed everything that Lev told us. Yes, that's why Lev is smiling, because he said exactly the same thing and gave us the name of the firm before we.
I was going to say.
Look, corroboration. That's what we love in the journalism world.
And we haven't been talking on the side.
No, exactly. I haven't even had them on together, which is fabulous that we are corroborating each other. Let me play really quickly, Lev. Chip Roy, the guy running for Attorney General. Oh, no, is he running for Attorney? Yeah, Attorney General of Texas, current Texas congressman. He laid out the bill of particulars of why what he thinks Pam Bondi failed to do, that he hopes that Todd Blanche or whoever replaces her will do.
Deal with things like Antifa. The president rightly declared them a terrorist organization. We want to see people who are affiliated with these Marxist networks funding Antifa, creating all sorts of danger for the American people. We want them held accountable. We want the people who are harassing J6ers held accountable. We want to know the truth on Arctic Frost. My records were targeted under Arctic Frost and Jack Smith. We want to see heads roll. We want to see John Brennan, who the Judiciary Committee referred to the Department of Justice, held accountable, and Jim Comey. Like, these are all things that we think need to happen. The next Attorney General needs to be very aggressive, and I hope the president will pick somebody who will do that. And I've been working with Todd Blanche, and I look forward to working with him in the interim.
Okay. Well, certainly there is a lot at stake, and certainly some of this.
You can, I mean, she was like kind of trying to shut him up at a certain point. Lev, I mean, these all seem like fanciful things. John Brennan is not going to prison. They also want Jerome Powell gone to prison. There was a judge just threw that out. Janine Pirro was losing her mind about that earlier. It is part of the challenge here that Donald Trump actually can't satisfy his base, because these things that Chip Roy just discussed, that's what the base wants. Those things are impossible.
100%. That's what he ran on. Each one of, if you listen to everything Chip Roy said, and everything is what he ran on. The Epstein files, getting Comey to prison, Brennan to prison, going after Jack Smith, everything that Chip Roy just spoke about is everything that Donald Trump ran on. And now it's all coming back to haunt him, because starting with the Epstein files, which obviously Trump couldn't even imagine that he was all over them until they opened them up, and then right now, as far as with these investigations, they're being embarrassed. I mean, look, Pam Bondi did everything. I mean, Melanie would know better. She, as a prosecutor, the fact that we had literally grand juries, we say a grand jury will indict a ham sandwich, but wouldn't indict these ham sandwiches that Pam Bondi and Donald Trump are bringing. I mean, there's only so much a prosecutor could do. So yes, I mean, you're going to hear the same. We want Todd Blanche to do this, Todd Blanche to do that. But the big thing that he bought with this is time right now. Right now, he bought the time deflection, because right now they're in a panic with the midterms. Susie Wiles came out and she said it. She said, look, we are going to get destroyed in the midterms with this war, with everything that's going on. They're seeing the writing on the wall, and he's trying to do these shakeups and try to start giving his base some meat, try to make some lies, like some hope to change. But I don't think it's going to change. I think they have a lot of problems. Like, I think in Trump's own words, they're going to go through some things.
They're going to go through some things. Last word to you on this, Melanie Sloan, because John Brennan would have had to commit a crime for you to be able to prosecute him. But the base of the party wants him, Hillary Clinton, James Comey, Jerome Powell. They're mad at Jerome Powell because he wouldn't lower interest rates. So Janine Pirro tried to, impanel a grand jury against him. That failed. Do the people who've been named, who keep getting named by the MAGA base, should they be worried? Is Todd Blanche a more able inquisitioner?
There is, of course, something to worry about, because all of these people do, in fact, have to hire lawyers. They have to hire very expensive lawyers and spend a lot of money defending themselves on these completely ridiculous charges. And that is not an insignificant amount of money. So for some people, sure, they may have a lot of money, but not everybody has a lot of money and can afford this. Yep. What you should keep an eye out for is there's going to be a lot going on down in Florida. They are trying to bring cases against Jack Smith, and they've been issuing subpoenas against not just Smith, but against many of his deputies. people who you would just never think to take on. And they're doing it in Florida. And where do you think they want to be? In front of Judge Eileen Cannon.
Of course.
And as we've seen, Eileen Cannon literally is auditioning for the Supreme Court. There's nothing you won't do for Trump. And even if you can get the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals to overturn something she's done, that's not going to stop somebody from having to both spend a lot of money and a lot of emotional energy and be tarred and, go through with all have to listen to Trump and all the people on Fox and Newsmax trashing them every day, trashing their families. I mean, they really, whether or not you are ultimately prosecuted and convicted of anything, and we can be assured that that will not happen, everything else is still pretty terrible.
Yeah, and the journalists that this is happening to, ditto for them as well. Melanie Sloan, Left Parnas, thank you both very much. Wishing you guys a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
You too. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. Thank you. Come back often. Yeah, this is where we stand. You have star chambers taking place in the United States of America. People having to fear prosecution because there's never enough. MAGA is never satisfied. There's never enough pain meted out upon the people that they don't like. All right. Well, we do like one group of people, and that is the people who sponsor us on this show. We appreciate them so very much. And I want to note that this show, the Joy Reid Show, is sponsored by our friends at strawberry.me. Now, you do not have to be unhappy at work to want something more in your career. That is exactly where strawberry.me comes in. They will match you with a professional career coach who will help you to figure out what it is you actually really want. What is worth your time to pursue? What kind of work could you do that doesn't feel like work at all because you love it? And how to make your move, your career move, without blowing up your life. So the reality is that each of us that have risen in this business or any career, we've had help along the way, people we've turned to for advice, people who've helped us to shape our path, people who can give you advice that's trustable. Those are the people you would consider your coach, right? And so when you get that kind of coaching, that kind of personal touch where people reach out and really understand and seek to understand what it is that you want to do, that in of itself is comforting, but it's also a way to really and truly build your career. So if you've been thinking, you know what, I should probably do something different, but I just don't know where to start, here's where to start. Go to strawberry.me/joy and find out if career coaching is right for you. Just go to strawberry.me/joy to get 50% off your first session. Give it a try. No great athlete makes it without coaching, and no great career is built without coaching as well. So thank you to strawberry.me for supporting this show. Okay, so after Donald Trump stormed angrily out of oral arguments on the Supreme Court, not hearing what he wanted to hear from the justices, whom he later suggested might be too stupid to side with him, John Roberts' Leonard Leo-built Supreme Court is still noodling on whether the man who would be king gets to blow up birthright citizenship, just blow up the 14th Amendment, a decision that technically could impact people like Marco Rubio or Vivek Ramaswamy, neither of whose parents were citizens when they were born. But as Georgetown law professor Stephen Vladeck pointed out in the New York Times, in some ways, just getting the case to the high court is a win for MAGA Christian nationalism. Vladeck wrote the following about this other ruling, not a ruling now, but a ruling that the court made just last June, limiting the ability of district courts, federal courts, to issue nationwide injunctions. Here's the quote. In May, during the first oral argument addressing 3 consolidated cases, Justice Elena Kagan highlighted an alarming possibility that such a ruling could create, that the government would lose a bunch of cases brought by individual plaintiffs, but never appeal its losses, so that it could continue to enforce a patently unlawful policy against anyone who didn't bring her or his own lawsuit to challenge it. An injunction, for instance, issued by a federal district court in Los Angeles would not directly benefit anybody other than the specific individuals who had brought that particular lawsuit. Without an appeal, the district court's ruling would not indirectly benefit anybody. Unlike decisions by the Supreme Court and federal appeals courts, district court rulings do not have precedential force in other cases, meaning that the regime could simply go to court on an issue, lose in district court, and then just stop litigating, so that whatever it is they were doing that's illegal in one jurisdiction could fall just in that jurisdiction, but stand everywhere else. They could continue to harm people everywhere else. That's a pretty scary thought. And it is not just like citizenship laws that can be quite boutique in our very strange country. Do y'all remember this lady? Take a look at this.
New signs that one of the most controversial freshman members of Congress is considering a run for the White House. More now from Jonathan Karl.
They are the queens of the Tea Party, tough, uncompromising, as conservative as they come. But with one big difference, this one looks like she's running for president.
Congresswoman, how are you? How are you?
We caught up with Michelle Bachmann at her hotel room in Des Moines and followed her everywhere.
Hi there, I'm Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. Oh my wow. Can't say your last name.
Bachmann.
Thanks for coming to Des Moines.
She charms the conservatives.
Well, I was born in Waterloo.
And she can out-tough talk Palin.
I may be 5'2" and wearing a yellow suit, but I am one tough lady. We need to go toe-to-toe, eyeball to eyeball with the president and say, Mr. President, you are wrong.
Bachmann would be a long shot, but few people fire up Tea Party activists more than she does. That's why the chairman of the Iowa Republican Party says she could be a force in the Iowa caucuses.
They line up with her stated principles of limited government, economic freedom, shrinking the size of things at the federal level. So I think there's an opportunity for her here.
So will she run?
I'm in for 2012 in that I want to be a part of the conversation of making sure that President Obama only serves one term, not two.
She told us she'll make up her mind by summer, regardless of what her friend Sarah Palin decides to do. For Good Morning America, Jonathan Karl, ABC News, Des Moines, Iowa.
So there it is. She was Sarah Palin before Sarah Palin. You remember Michelle Bachmann? So she was an interesting character in 2012. She actually was considered a pretty formidable potential candidate back then in 2012. And a lot of her staff at the time had spawned off into MAGA land and become like leaders of that MAGA movement. But it was not just her bona fides as a right-winger on, fiscal matters and the fact that she was a right-wing Christian born in Iowa with all those bona fides. It was also her husband and his sort of Christian family business. Let's play B3.
And tonight with an ABC News investigation, Tea Party powerhouse Michelle Bachmann has rocketed to the top of the Republican pack. Tonight, a closer look at the business she and her husband own back home in Minnesota. An outside group filmed undercover video inside the Bachmann's Christian Counseling Center. Bachmann's husband has said he does not try to turn gay people straight. ABC's chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross is here with those tapes and to tell us what they show tonight. Brian.
Well, Diane, they are quite a couple, and we're learning a lot more about their views and how they've made their money.
Michelle Bachmann tells reporters her husband Marcus has been the key to her 33 years of happy marriage.
I have a very big advantage because Marcus has his PhD in counseling and he's a marriage counselor.
But Dr. Bachmann's brand of counseling is highly controversial and could become a campaign issue.
Here's my husband, Dr. Marcus Bachmann.
Operating out of suburban Minneapolis, Dr. Bachmann runs a Christian counseling firm, co-owned with his wife, that at times, according to former patients, has tried to convert gay men into heterosexuals through prayer.
His path for my therapy would be to read the Bible and pray to God that I would no longer be gay.
Andrew Ramirez of Minneapolis was 17 when his family sent him to Bachmann and Associates, where he says.
So I'm not going to play more of it because you kind of get the idea. This is a 17-year-old kid. He goes into this thing and they try to pray the gay out of him. They pray away the gay thing. This was a thing, right? Well, clinics like the Bachmanns just won a major ruling in the Supreme Court. By the way, that clinic that we were just talking about, it was cited for violations in Minnesota in 2017 that he called just clerical errors, but they cited for violations. But anyway, clinics like that have just won a big, big victory in the Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled 8-1 this week against a Colorado law that banned conversion therapy for youth in a case that could have major consequences for transgender and queer youth across the U.S. and for healthcare more broadly. Colorado's 2019 law prohibits licensed clinicians from seeking to change the gender identity or sexual orientation of youth patients under 18. It's one of 23 states with similar restrictions. The case is called Childs versus Salazar. It was brought by a woman named Kaylee Childs, who's a licensed counselor who argued that Colorado's ban infringed on her free speech rights to talk with patients about her faith. and beliefs on biological sex. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was the lone dissenter in the case. According to SCOTUS blog, she argued that the majority's opinion could be ushering in an era of unprofessional and unsafe medical care administered effectively by unsupervised healthcare providers. Joining us now to discuss all of this is Imara Jones, the Emmy and Peabody Award-winning creator of Trans-Lash Media, a cross-platform nonprofit journalism and narrative organization which produces content to shift the current culture of hostility towards transgender people in the U.S. Imara, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Great to see you. What did you make of this Supreme Court ruling?
Well, I think that as I wrote in a piece, that declaring conversion therapy to be legal in this country, and let's remember that 23 states, nearly half the states plus the District of Columbia, had enacted conversion therapy bans because it had been deemed to be pseudoscience, quack science, fake science. It's been a long time holy grail of the people who wanted to make conversion therapy legal for it to be declared legal, because one of their intents is to say that trans people aren't real. And that if trans people can be converted, right, can be moved through talk therapy, through prayer, as you heard, I don't know, through other types of quackery, then that means that we don't have to confer rights to trans people, because trans people are not worthy of dignity and equal human rights of other people. And we know that the people that are behind these lawsuits have long wanted a Supreme Court ruling, because it circumvents the messy state legislative process that they say that they've supported for all these years, because they were losing there. And it puts them on a path to be able to erase people. And I think, as you alluded to in Justice Jackson's opinion, one of the reasons why we have had relatively strong healthcare in terms of standards in this country is because people, namely state medical bodies, get to say things that are fake and things that are real with regards to medical science. And that if we say that people under free speech can suggest whatever medical treatments they wish, regardless of whether or not they work, that changes the healthcare system for everybody. So you could have a situation where people are suggesting, for example, injecting Clorox to cure viruses, and you can't stop them from doing it because it's free speech. So in so many ways, it's very, very dangerous for everybody, in addition to, of course, trans people.
Yeah, I mean, I just binged all 5 seasons of Poldark, which I recommend everybody do. It's quite good. And one of the, doctors in it, applied leeches to people, right? And I mean, what if somebody said, well, it's my religious belief that the only way to cure, X disease is by applying leeches, and then you couldn't stop them from doing it. They're like, well, that's my religious belief. Like you could kind of say anything, right? If free speech means you can slap religion on it, and suddenly you get to say, my treatment that I've made up in my mind is legal, that does feel frightening to me for everyone.
That's exactly right. And that's exactly what they are doing. And as I have pointed out for a long time now, the things that they are doing on trans people are essentially a road test to what they do for everyone. Because as you know and are very much aware, their goal is to narrow the idea of citizenship, to narrow the idea of humanity to a small enough group of people that will allow them to remain in power. And you essentially then have to take away citizenship, take away rights, take away recognition from all of the types of people that you disagree with, or that you don't want to be a part of that American story. And trans people are such a small part of the population. 1 out of every 100 people are trans in the United States. There's such a small group of people where you can experiment on the combination of laws, rules, administrative rulings, customs, to be able to confer that type of marginalization. And once you get that formula right, you can just broaden it to the rest of society. And so I think that's why this case has these broader implications, because it's quite clear that next up are LGBTQ people. We know that they believe that anyone disabled doesn't have equal rights in this country. So whether or not you be anything from ADHD or have some other type of mental health or disability that is even more severe than anxiety or that sort of thing, that you shouldn't be able to have equal rights. They've issued a ruling that trans people in prison, that they should be allowed to experiment on trans people with psychotropic drugs that may not be widely available, to see if they will work. So I think that all of these reasons are why the Lemkin Institute for the Study of Holocaust, which sort of looks at the modern world and tries to prevent Holocaust from happening again in a modern setting, say that when it comes to trans people in the United States, that we are in the early to middle stages of a genocide happening.
Yeah, I mean, in Nazi Germany, trans people were sort of an early indicator of what they were going to do. They sort of went after the trans community. They went after then the gay community and nightclubs, et cetera. And that's sort of the precursor to what they did more broadly to Jewish people. But let's talk about some of the other potential, and I hate to be very pessimistic, but if you know me, my name is sort of ironic. When it comes to the Supreme Court, I am not really hopeful about them, about anything. And some of the other laws that may come before them, maybe one day could include the SAVE Act, which would require your birth certificate and your voting records to match. That means every trans person who's transitioned and changed their name would automatically be not allowed to vote. There's that. And then there's also state laws in some states. I want to say Kansas, I don't want to disparage Kansas if I'm getting the wrong state, that have already made it unlawful for trans people to have a driver's license and told them, turn your driver's license in. If that then goes up to an appeals court, per the Supreme Court's new rules, if, let's say, a district court ruled against that state and said you can't have that law, that wouldn't apply to any other state. It wouldn't have any application outside that state. So state by state, you could see states take away people's right to drive. This all feels ominous, and I'm not sure I trust John Roberts to stop it. Do you?
Well, I mean, what's the old Russian saying, trust but verify. And I think that there's so many ways in which, this isn't about trust. This is about what we can see and what is verifiable. And what we know is that the Supreme Court is bending the rules as they go along to allow them to do whatever they want in service to seemingly a larger agenda, right? And these are things, what I just said is not, again, it's not radical. It's not being, an advocate. These are what their fellow justices have said, right? These are what Justices Sotomayor, for example, and Kagan have said in other cases. This is not kind of radical stuff that we are talking about. And no, I mean, I think that, the Supreme Court clearly, because it is also steadily losing the confidence of the American people, is showing that and making the case for the fact that there may need to be some substantial changes to the way that that it as an institution works in America, because they're twisting themselves in a pretzel as a part of this agenda. And I think that when it comes to a broad array of issues in the United States, the people that are writing these opinions are violating other opinions that they've co-signed on earlier in their careers in order to do the things that they want to do, including on this particular issue. And it's so clear that, they're kind of making up their minds around trans people, that trans people should be excluded. And so if they are making their minds up about trans people, who else gets to be on the list of not being included in people deserving equal protections and equal rights, right? What's interesting to me also about the SAVE Act, you referenced that, there's this conversation, trans people, are trans women? We don't really know if trans women should be counted as women. When it comes to the SAVE Act, trans women are counted as women, because the inability to be able to recognize for a name change applies to all people under the SAVE Act, including women. If you did a name change when you got married and it doesn't match your birth certificate, for example, or if all of your documents aren't to date. So the lines that people are making between, what applies to one group and what applies to another group are actually razor thin.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how John Donald Hamel, or whatever J.D. Vance's real name was, would get to vote. I'm like, is John Donald going to get to vote? Because if I can't vote, I think he shouldn't be able to vote either, because his name wholly doesn't match. He's changed it 4 times. Let me ask you, just on a personal level, it has been a rough period for trans folks since the 2024 election. A third of the campaign dollars that were spent by the Trump campaign were specifically on ads about trans women in sports, and fixating on trans people in a way that was actually very effective. It did move some voters, including some voters of color. How difficult has that been? And do you think that ice is thawing?
No. I think that, Donald Trump has told Republicans in almost every single forum that he can that the thing that they are to run on this year, because they kind of can't move any other part of their agenda, and we could even go one by one and see how they're kind of stuck. The thing that they've done that's relatively popular, not wholly, but relatively popular in contrast to all of the others, are the things they've done in targeting trans people. So he told the Republican conference in January that they need to run on trans people, that they need to run against rights for trans people and make the case that everything they've done to target trans people is in the best interest of Americans. And so that means that the closer we get to the election, right, we're going to have a repeat of what we saw before, which I don't think is only going to be about ads this time. I think they're going to be much larger moves of persecution and reprisals. And so I think it's going to get much worse this year. And I don't do that because I don't say this because, like you, overly pessimistic, but it's just literally the reality. I mean, when you have, again, a research institute that studies genocide says this group of people in the United States in 2026 are in the early to middle stages of genocide, that's not hyperbole. That's based upon where we are. The only way that we don't get there is if people wake up. If people really understand that a conversation about trans athletes and trans people using the bathroom and trans healthcare actually is not relevant to them or their lives, that they are being manipulated as a part of a larger agenda, and to not be duped, essentially, to not be deceived into supporting agendas that are not in their best interest, then we don't have to get there. It's only if people allow these things to somehow make sense to them that we'll get there. We don't have to, but it means people have to wake up and stop being used.
Yeah, if you're paying attention to who being in a bathroom with you, it's not them, it's you. I've never had any interest in whoever you're trying to get your thing done and get out
As fast as possible.
As fast as possible, especially if you're not home. It's like you don't want to be hanging out in there looking around and scrutinizing everybody, seeing what's happening. Why are you doing that? That's just weird.
I had a conservative woman I was interviewing once for a podcast series. She's like one of these people that are close to General Flynn, actually his friend and next door neighbor. And she said to me, we were interviewing, and she said, well, if I walked in the bathroom and you were dropping your pants in the middle of the floor, that would be concerning to me. I said, Connie, if I walked into a bathroom and you were dropping your pants, that would be of great concern to me as well. Like, what are you talking about?
It makes me wonder what they actually do in the bathroom, because y'all spend a lot of time and you do a lot of ogling, because I'm like, I don't want to go in the bathroom with them, because literally they do more peeping in the bathroom than anyone I've ever seen. It's weird.
And the people they police the most are people that they don't think conform to gender norms.
Correct.
And a lot of times the people that don't conform to their idea of womanhood, we know historically, are Black women, right?
That's
so
right.
they challenge, like, do you belong here? And
Yes.
it's because, and I think that, like, we also have to realize that, like, these things that they are pushing are not in the interest of people, right?
Come on. When I tell you God is still working on me, but I'll tell you one way that God has got me on this weekend before Easter is God has never let me, because I walk around in a baseball cap all the time. I'm a tomboy. God has never let one of them ask me if I'm in the right bathroom. 'Cause God knows that we don't need to have Joy bailed out today and be Fox News A block again, because it wouldn't go well. It won't go well.
It's wild to do that. It is wild to think it is your job to
Come
look
on.
in people's underwear. It's
To
a
look-
very
come on.
strange thing.
Come
And like
on.
that to me is the mental
Come on.
illness. Like, who wants to pass laws that allow strangers to inspect
Come
the
on.
genitals of teenage girls? That's
This is-
weird.
Well, when you think about the Epstein connections, maybe it makes more sense.
Because they're a little obsessed.
It's a little obsessive. It's weird. Mara Jones, please come back often and we can kiki about all the things that go on. Well, we don't want to talk about what they do in the bathroom. Let's come back and let's talk about something fun from your podcast. Please let everybody know where they can follow you.
You can follow me on social media at Amara Jones, which is my name, or follow us on Translash Media and subscribe to the Translash podcast.
Come on back and we'll talk about something fun, because talking about them just gives me the creeps a little bit.
Talk about it.
A little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
friend. Have a great weekend. Yeah, they give me the creeps. I promise you, I don't know. I've never looked at what another person is happening inside of their drawers, inside of the bathroom. And I think if you do, there's something deeply wrong with you. But I'm telling you, God knows my heart, because I really wish somebody would stop me in my baseball cap and say, am I in the right bathroom? Lord, work on me. Speak, Lord. Speak to me. Speak, Lord. I need somebody to speak to me. Speak to me. All right, y'all. Let's thank one of our other wonderful sponsors, because this one is key. This is one of our favorites. ZBiotics. Here it is. Let me show you guys what the box looks like. I don't think I've shown you the box.
Did you take one of those before we get started? Because you sound like you're going to be hyper tonight.
Lord.
Lord.
Let me let you know that the Joy Reid Show is brought to you by ZBiotics.
Celebrations don't start with the clinking of glasses. They start with ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol, a probiotic you take before your first drink, so you can enjoy the night and wake up ready. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol, the science behind your next great morning.
All right, y'all. Yes, this is such an important part of getting my life. You know, they say, get your life, get your life. ZBiotics is what I rely on to support my goal of being fully present and ready for whatever comes my way by keeping my social life and my wellness goals aligned. So let's just face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. Menopause is menopausing. And I therefore have to make a choice. I can either have a great night or a great next day. And that was the way it was before I found pre-alcohol. Now, one of the great things about pre-alcohol is that it allows you to live your life, live your truth without having to worry about what happens 24 hours later. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered prebiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Let me tell you how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. And you know, your gut is where your health lives. And it is a buildup of that byproduct in your gut, not dehydration like your mama told you, that is to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme that counteracts and breaks up this horrible byproduct in your gut. So if you just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, then drink responsibly, you will feel your best tomorrow. So let me just show you. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to show you guys the box. And you can see that I'm a sharer because there's only one left. People be drinking my stuff. People be taking my things, y'all. But I'm telling you, it is the key. It is the key to me being able to have my security. And I first tried this because, you know, the security is a great drink, but it's got a couple of alcohols in it. So it can mess with your gut. And I first tried ZBiotics over the New Year's holiday. It was a game changer. Next morning, we were right on here on the Joy Reid Show. I felt terrific. I was able to go. Just last week, we all went out and took Wanji, one of our team members, to dinner. And the only problem I had after taking my ZBiotic, having my meal, having my security, was that I ate too much. And ZBiotic can't help you with that. If you eat too much, it's not on them. So let's just be real. Usually a Friday night, Friday night out used to mean a Saturday morning with the blackout curtains closed and canceling your outings or your workouts or whatever else was on your schedule. But since I started incorporating pre-alcohol, my security cocktail does not disrupt my morning flow, again, unless I eat too much and it's not on them. If you want to start incorporating pre-alcohol into your life and wellness routine, just head to zbiotics.com/joy. Use the code JOY. You can do it in all caps just for fun at checkout for 15% off. That's zbiotics.com/joy. Use the code JOY for 15% off. Do that at checkout. Thank you all very much. And we appreciate ZBiotics. They've been a longtime sponsor of the show. Okay, so
I just want to say before the record, before we get started with Block C, that as usual, I had one. But listen, I had one before we went with one juror and her party.
Y'all.
But that's it. How many drinks did you have this weekend?
When I tell y'all, every time
Oh,
I
matter
talk
of fact,
about
how many
people
drinks
drinking my stuff
How many drinks did you
or
have
eating
this
my
week?
stuff or eating my mosh bars, this one comes on. Am I pointing the right way? This one comes on and says, I didn't do it.
I didn't do that. We discussed
many
this
people
on
live now?
Monday. Right now, there's about 4 of us in here, and the 3 of y'all, apart from me, ate your mosh bars. But back to what I was saying
Y'all,
about
let me tell y'all, the mosh
ZBiotic.
bars is gone. I think there's one left up. They be eating my
Did
stuff,
you
y'all.
eat some last night? I mean, I didn't
had
eat
one.
it. Well, see, there you go. There goes one less one.
I had mosh bar. Somebody had mosh
whatever.
bars. And I had prebiotics.
I
And now
had
I have
one of
prebiotic.
those. I had one of those last week.
So
and I
this,
haven't had
let me tell y'all something right now, because this Friday night, this is mine. I'm keeping
whatever.
it right here.
I'm drinking now, so I don't even need it. I'll talk to you later.
I'm keeping it, and I get my subscription for it, so I make sure that I don't run out. And because I'm gonna have to double the subscription because all the thieves in the house. Can't trust nobody. Speak, Lord.
You better
Speak to me.
Could we get started with Block C, please?
Speak, Lord.
You a trip, man.
Speak to me. Yeah, that's right. Guilty. Thank you. Yeah, they know what they did. They know what they did. Listen, y'all. Yesterday, I was watching. Do you guys watch Professor Jang? I love Professor Jang's YouTube channel. So I was listening to it yesterday, and I watched. He did it was like a 40-minute piece. I sat and watched the whole thing, and he said something that I think is really important. And this is what he said. He said that the post-World War II United States military is not built to win wars. Not built to win wars. It's built to enrich defense contractors. That's deep, right, Jason? That's deep. They're not built to win wars. It's built to enrich defense contractors. Do you guys remember last week when I played that Eisenhower military industrial complex clip? Y'all remember that? Looking over here at Substack. You remember? Yep, I'm getting a yes from Neil. Koskowitz says yes. Everybody's saying yes. You remember it? Remember what he was warning about in that clip. He warned that the confluence of military interests and corporate interests could create a drive toward forever war, because the industrialists who build the weapons are going to want them to be used up so that the government will have to keep coming back and buying more. And the government's push towards spending your tax money on weapons development, on weapons research, encourages these companies, which get that money, to focus on building newer, more sophisticated, more spectacular machines, while the government spends less and less and less on things like military personnel, education for those personnel, or training, the stuff that actually helps a country win wars. When you think about it, that way you can kind of see why we actually haven't won a war since the war that Eisenhower was the supreme commander of in World War II. We haven't won a war since. If you think about it, we haven't won not a single one. And this, despite the fact that in every military battle since World War II, we've won every battle. We've never lost a military battle head to head with anyone in Korea, in Vietnam, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, but we haven't won a war. Fast forward to another old guy, Mitch McConnell, back when he was still lucid and could talk. This is when he was pushing, during the Biden administration, when he was pushing his party, the Republicans, to support funding for Ukraine, to back Ukraine in their war to repel the invasion by Russia. So take a listen to this clip, and this is from the Biden era. Here's Mitch McConnell.
The Ukraine assistance. Let's talk about where the money is really going. A significant portion of it's being spent in the United States, in 38 different states, replacing the weapons that we sent to Ukraine with more modern weapons. So we're rebuilding our industrial base.
You hear that? Moscow Mitch told you. Aha! Moscow Mitch just told on himself. He told on the government. The whole point of selling arms to other countries is because they use them up and they have to keep coming back and buying more. And that feeds the coffers of military industrial complex companies like Northrop Grumman in this country, who place the production plants for the planes, the ships. These are placed in every single U.S. state. Pieces of them are made here, pieces of them are made there, part in Arkansas, part in North Carolina, part in California. They make them, and they don't make them all in one place. They make them in every state so that every governor, every state legislature has an interest in continuing the grift, to continuing building the planes, keep building the things. It's built in your city. If you stop taking that tax money to build them, you're going to lose out. The same goes for the AI companies, right? More war means more need for their products, more for their war-fighting robotics, their AI products that they use to target people in the military. It's very lucrative, which is why the corporations want forever war. War makes money. And they don't care whether you actually win the war. They just want you to use the stuff and then come back and buy more. Let me just break it down for a moment on the industrial side. The cost to build an F-35 fighter jet, the F-35A, let's say specifically, is between $82.5 and $94 million per plane. Our amazing researchers got this for us. Thank you, for Bethany, for that information. Depending on which estimate you use, right? $82.5 to $94 million per plane. The cost increases to $109 million per plane for what's called an F-35B, and $102.1 million per plane for an F-35C fighter jet. Now let's go to the F-15EX fighter jet, like the one that Iran shot down this week. The cost for that plane, $90 to $97 million per plane, or $117 million for a jet that's fully combat ready. Okay, each plane. A U.S. Navy ship costs anywhere from the hundreds of millions, 300 and some odd million, to 13 some odd billion dollars a piece, which is why we're probably really not keen to send too many of those into the Gulf. That's why we're not putting those in the Straits of Hormuz. They're really expensive. Nor will our allies, who also spend a lot of money on those ships and probably buy some of them from us. You put one of those out, you're going to have to be real stingy with what you do with those ships. What about the Patriot missiles, like the ones we dropped on that girls' school? $3.5 million to $4 million a piece. A piece. So we spent roughly $8 million to bomb 160 little girls in that Iranian school. About $8 million that cost us. Boom. Let's go to Iran's side. They build a short-range missile called the Fatah 110 that cost an estimated $110,000, all the way up to $2.1 million a piece for their more sophisticated one. Iran also produces and exports a short-range drone, which is called the Shahed 136, which it also sells to Russia to use in Ukraine. Those drones cost about $30,000 a piece. So this is the new cost of war. We are firing multiple $3 to $4 million missiles at Iran, including the two, as I said, that we fired to kill those 160 girls at the school, while they are sitting back and firing $30,000 guns at the Gulf, wrecking our military bases that our allies allow us to have in places like Qatar, Dubai, and the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia, making it really costly for them to have our bases and our troops there. They have to make a calculation. Is it worth it to have the bases for the U.S. here when Iran can rain down $30,000 scuds at a short range on our cities? They are firing missiles into Haifa. And it's so expensive to do the missiles that shoot back. The Iron Dome is starting to fail because so many short range and long range missiles are falling on Haifa and Israel that they're having to spend millions of dollars to stop one drone, but they're firing like 100 of them. They can do this all day. That's the calculation. There's a guy named Nick Adams who writes for the Atlantic Council. Let me read you what he wrote. He said, shock and awe was the term of art when the United States invaded Iraq in 2003. That conflict saw the United States bring to bear overwhelming military force, backed by superior technology in the form of precision-guided weapons, stealth aircraft, and satellite technology, as well as a finely tuned military force built on sound doctrine, world-class training, and a professional cadre of officers and non-commissioned officers, except for the ones who were torturing people. In many ways, the initial strikes on Iran resembled this dynamic, a world-class military with superior weapons and training engaging a weaker foe, aiming to achieve a lightning-fast military victory in service of political aims. Like what they think happened in Venezuela, where we really didn't do anything but probably arrange to go and get that man without much bloodshed. But we're trying to do this, shock and awe, right? But a closer look is what this gentleman, Nick Adams, writes. A closer look, however, reveals a shift in the battlefield dynamic over the past 20 years that often gives weaker militaries more tools to offset stronger adversaries. Cheap drones, open source satellite imagery, and cyber tools give weaker states such as Iran new ways to hold superior militaries at risk, while forcing them, the superior militaries, to expend munitions and resources at a far greater cost. And despite deep capital markets, a strong innovation base, and a growing defense tech sector in the United States, costs remain high and development timelines remain long due to an ornery requirements process, misaligned acquisition incentives, and bureaucratic inertia. The Pentagon's challenge is to rapidly field innovative, lower-cost technologies alongside its exquisite capabilities, ensuring each is used where it delivers the greatest advantage. This is the new asymmetric cost of warfare. The Gulf Information Center, which is another group that analyzes this stuff, they broke down Iran's April of 2024 mass strike. And that's when Iran fired rockets at Israel. Remember that? And Israel fired back when they had that back and forth sort of mini war. They estimate that in that back and forth with Israel, Tehran, that's the Iranian capital, spent $80 million on munitions that night. 80,100 on munitions that night. I think I'm doing that wrong. I think it was 8.1 million. Sorry, 8.1 million. Sorry, that was a typo. $8.1 million on munitions that night. 8.1 million. While Israel and their partners spent about $1 billion to stop them. So it's 8.1 million to $1 billion, which explains why the supposed president for peace, Donald Trump, is preparing to ask Congress for $1.5 trillion for the Department of Defense to fund his forever wars. And I actually think I got that wrong. It's 80 million. Sorry, 80 million versus $1 billion. So they spent 80 million. 80 million is what Tehran spent, 80 million. And the United States and Israel and their partners spent $1 billion. It's still bad math. So they're now asking for $1.5 trillion, okay? And just to show you how unprecedented that $1.5 trillion ask is, and they're clearly saying they're going to cut domestic programs to get it. They want another $1.5 trillion in their new budget request. Just to show you guys how crazy that is. Remember this chart? We put this chart up the other day. This was the chart of U.S. defense spending over time. Look at the top. In 2024 dollars, in modern dollars, 1945 was the peak of U.S. military spending. That's $1.4 trillion. Donald Trump now wants $100 billion more than that. We would be expending the most money. That's more than the war on terror, which you can see there in the sort of lower half of your screen from 2000 on. That's the war on terror, $500 billion, $998 billion when the so-called war on terror peaked. We'd be more than that, more than the war on terror, more than was spent in 2024 when Iran actually did a skirmish with Israel. We'd be spending more than in World War II. Trump is asking for a defense budget in 2026 dollars that's more than the World War II defense budget to fight a country that didn't attack us and that now may have one of our pilots detained as a hostage. And you wonder why they renamed the Defense Department the Department of War? Because that's what they intend to do, make very lucrative war, which is wild, right? Because this whole gambit used to be something that Drunky Petey Hegseth used to think was dumb.
I've been a recovering neocon for 6 years now. Like the foolishness with which we ricocheted around the world, intervening, think it was in our best interest, when really we just overturned the table and created something worse in almost every single scenario, has led to the hubris of the Pentagon is that they want to now tell other countries how to do counterinsurgency based on what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like, are you kidding me? So you really have learned nothing. Okay, nothing. So you're right. That the trust there that our political leaders or our generals would have our best interests in mind is totally broken. It's totally broken.
Have you learned nothing? Have you learned nothing? What happened to that guy, right? That guy used to think waging these forever wars was crazy. It was dumb. What's the point of running around the world, telling the world how to live and how to do counterinsurgency and staying there for 20 years for no reason? For what? What do we gain? He's now in there like a 13-year-old kid that's got war toys to play with. And now he's excited about killing in the Caribbean, killing in Iran, forever war alongside Israel. What's that about? And it's not just him. Donald Trump used to be the guy who said we wasted billions and billions and trillions of dollars on forever wars, and that was dumb. And now all of a sudden he's done the switch up too. Here's C5. This is Donald Trump's little switch up.
When in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that. Childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first.
We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it, too. They should pay. They have to raise their taxes, but they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up, but it's not possible for us to take care of daycare. Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things, they can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing, military protection. We have to guard the country.
You hear that? We can't do Medicare, Medicaid, daycare. We can't do that. We got to take care of war. We got to take care of war. We need to spend all our money on war, on the military-industrial complex. We need more Patriot missiles, more F-15s, more F-35s. We need to enrich my donors. The people who want to protect the country. We need to enrich my donors who want war there because they're making money off of it, because somebody's doing weird investments in oil futures. Whenever I say we're going to drop a bomb on Iran, whenever I brag about dropping bombs on Iran, somebody's making money on those oil futures. The military industrial people gave me $1 billion. Northrop Grumman needs their money. Y'all people hungry and you want food, you want daycare, you want to live, you want your grandma to live. Well, that's not our job. Let your state do that. They should raise their taxes. Oh, suddenly he's for tax increases. Anything it takes to take all of your money and spend it on the Department of War. Joining me now, Ambassador Bonnie Jenkins, currently the Shapiro Visiting Professor for International Affairs at the Elliott School of International Affairs at George Washington University and the Compton Visiting Professor at the Miller Center at the University of Virginia. She is the former Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security in the Biden administration, quite conveniently. Alongside her is our good friend Dean Obeidallah, host of the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM channel 127, weekdays at 6 to 9 p.m. ET. You got to watch one of us. You got to tape the other one. That's the idea, is that we want you all to be listening to Dean. Dean is who I listen to when I'm going to pick up Nala from daycare. Yes, she goes to daycare. She's very spoiled. And I sit there and I listen to Dean on my way home. So I love the show. He's also the author of the Dean's Report on Substack, which we're going to put in the link to this very show. And he's also the producer of the hilarious and annual New York Arab American Comedy Festival. And he's also a lawyer. He's very convenient. That's very convenient for us as well. He doesn't always admit to it, but he is. I want to start with you, Madam Ambassador, first, because this notion that we need to fight Iran, and Donald Trump says we need to scrap everything else, from daycare to Medicaid, Medicare, forget the old people. We need to fight Iran because that's protecting the country. Mm-hmm. As somebody who is an undersecretary for arms control, are we protecting the country by fighting Iran?
Actually, well, first of all, thanks for having me here. And no, we're not. I mean, let's go back to why we even entered this war. There was never a real imminent threat when we entered the war. And so at this point, there's no reason for us to really keep saying that by being in this war, we're protecting America. There's a lot of Americans who would think that there's other ways that they would like to be protected. It is not spending money, big money, on war. It's protecting Americans, like he said he was going to do, by making sure that Americans can actually live every day, and afford the things that they need to afford. But spending the money that we're spending on this war, threatening our own ability to be prepared for other types of potential challenges by using up our military equipment, this is not going to prepare us for the future, and it's not going to help us now.
And Dean, what happened to that other guy, right? The old guy. I can see how some people were attracted to that candidacy if that's what they were focused on. If you cared about peace, he was saying we need to spend money on our airports, not on wars.
I think it's a brain swap. Is that possible? I think maybe they actually did an actual physical moving his brain around. I think what happened, Joy, is Donald Trump's gotten intoxicated with blowing things up and intoxicated with his idea of power. Like, I think he really did run sincerely on no more wars, and I think he believed that. Then the problem really was for us was how Venezuela went so easily for him. So then within a week of the Iran war, he point blank said, this will be just like Venezuela. It's going to be easy. His exact words. It's going to be easy like Venezuela. And it's not. So the success of Venezuela is because of our military. They're well trained and they can execute really well. And they did that. So the result is where we are now. And I think he just loves us. Now, he is all powerful. He's the Putin of our hemisphere. The only difference is with Putin, we and our allies impose sanctions on Putin and on the oligarchs. When Trump does it, no one of our allies even talk about sanctioning Trump. They should be talking to Trump, the cabinet officials, his oligarchs should be sanctioned the same way Putin is. If you want to change conduct, you've got to give people skin in the game. And as of now, they're doing nothing. So where that person has gone, Donald Trump is intoxicated with this new power, and he likes being a strong man.
Yeah, just to that point, Jason, if you could pull up C8. I mean, Donald Trump is posting on social media video bragging about destroying civilian infrastructure, which could be a war crime. Yeah. And he's putting that on his Twitter, his Truth Social. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is sick. A president of the United States, Dean, boasting about destroying a civilian bridge. And you know what he never posts about? And I'm sorry, Jason, this is C7. I'm going a bit out of order in C7. He doesn't post about this. These are the service members who were killed so far that we know of. I mean, there's an allegation there's 37 more. Dean, he doesn't talk about that.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, do you want the ambassador?
I was going to start with you and then go to the ambassador.
Oh, okay. So look, Donald Trump never wants to know about anything that disrupts the narrative he's trying to peddle to the American people. Donald Trump's lies are catching up right here. Donald Trump said within a week of the war beginning and repeated over and over, Iran has no more air force. They have no more missiles. They have no more anti-aircraft capabilities. He literally said they have no anti-aircraft capabilities. Today, 2 jets went down, one an F-15, which we know was shot down, and the other an A-10 Warhawk, and they're wondering, was that shot down or not? There are missiles, like you were just covering before we came on, every day going against our Gulf allies, hitting these in Kuwait today, and in Israel, where Hen, my fiance, who Joy knows, she gets the alerts on her phone because her family still lives in Haifa. Every night we hear missiles coming every single night. She calls her family, make sure they're awake because it's 3 and 4 in the morning over in Haifa. And you know, my family's in the West Bank, the Palestinians. They have to go into shelters too because the missiles come over and they've killed Palestinians in the West Bank because Iran doesn't care. They just fire them. Sometimes they get intercepted. Sometimes they kill Palestinians. So this is a regional war, and Trump keeps lying. He said about nuclear weapons, even though he obliterated them, and he's lying, saying they have no military capabilities when they do, and joyful about a war crime taking out a civilian bridge.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised they're not bragging about killing those little girls in the school because they did take responsibility for that too. But Madam Ambassador, let's play this. This is C6, Jason, when you have it. So this shooting down of a U.S. F-15, this is catastrophic. Like the idea that a small power like Iran could figure out how to do it. Do you have that, Jason? Okay, go for it. There it is. Let's go that. There's the footage. And this is Iran is putting this footage out, and I'm playing it because it has now been confirmed. Axios reported on it, as well as the Associated Press. I think we can be pretty confident that it happened. One of the pilots, at least, has been recovered. There's a search on for the other one. This is happening at a time when Americans still don't understand why our troops are over there at all, Madam Ambassador.
Well, I think what you're showing here is one of the biggest problems. We talked already about the lies. There's saying, for example, that we have destroyed their air capability, their ability to take down planes. Clearly, we have not done that. And so that's the first problem. The second problem, as you said, is we continue to underestimate what they can do. We keep trying to tell the American public, we've destroyed this, we destroyed that, but there's really shows a lack of respect, if you have to say that word, for their capabilities and what they could do. We're constantly underestimating them, and we're selling it to the American public. And then 2-3 days later, they find out that what has been said is not even true. So that's a real problem. And also, just go back what you said about showing the bombs, this desire to show destruction, this desire to show all of the bombings that's going out there, a clear disconnect between what's being shown and what the American public really wants to see. And finally, just to go back what you said about the law, the crimes of law. I mean, obviously targeting the civilians, targeting structures that have no connection to the war, and actually bragging about it and saying, we're going to do this. It's incredible. I don't think I've ever seen a situation where a leader will say out loud to the public, I am going to do a war crime. So it's all just crazy that we're doing this, that we're not telling the public what's going on, that we show this interest and this desire for bombing and for killing, and is not reflected at all what the American public wants, what the international community even expects. It is almost as if they're in a whole different world in the way in which they conducted this war.
Can I say with you for a moment, Madam Ambassador? I mean, Emmanuel Macron came out and said to effectively gave Donald Trump a little bit of a brushback, saying, you need to say what you're doing. He's saying, he's criticizing Trump, saying that if you say you're going to open the Strait of Hormuz by force, that's not realistic. That's not a realistic thing to say. And you've had multiple European countries say no to sending their ships into the strait to try to force it open. And you've had Spain now say no. I believe Italy had, Meloni has said no. Donald Trump is getting brushed back, other than England, which seems to want to bend the knee. The rest are saying absolutely not. We're not going to help you. What does that mean for us? And what does that mean for NATO?
Well, first of all, it says a lot. You really can't underestimate what's happening here, and the fact that our partners and allies are saying, we will not help you. We will not assist you. We will not be a part of this. A lot of it is, of course, because they were not told. They have interests in these countries. They have people in these countries. We didn't even have a courtesy to let them know that something was going to happen. We didn't reach out to them. We didn't consult with them. Donald Trump continues to disrespect them, and then they were asking for help. So we cannot underestimate what's happening here. But as you say, this is going to have reverberations far beyond what's happening right now, because the trust that they've had in us is going away every single day. The disrespect we're showing them is hurting us every single day. And to expect that we're going to come out of this and they're going to want to work with us and going to trust us, we're sounding like they're doing us a favor and that, oh, we're always protecting you. We have to stop protecting you. We're always, but there is a back and forth. There's a whole history which they don't seem to have any understanding of how you develop these relationships with countries for years. So this is really going to be negative for the U.S. And I don't know how we'll ever get the trust back from our closest partners and allies. And if they don't trust us, what is everybody else going to do?
Yeah, I mean, why would they trust, first of all, not even just our next leader, they don't trust the American people, because we could turn around and elect another joker like Trump. I mean, the fact that we knew what Trump was and millions of people, 80 million people said, yeah, put him back in, I wouldn't trust us, because we are sometimey when it comes to whether or not we want a fool or a normal president. Another thing that's happened, Dean, that I've never seen. I mean, I know that the Iranians, they're much more savvy than people give them credit for. People think of them as sort of unsophisticated. No, they're very sophisticated. And I remember when their Iranian president used to give interviews, on CNN, to Christiane Amanpour, and would just sort of he's a very jocular fellow, and they would talk. In this case, now you've had Iran, their new supreme leader, or he might not be the supreme leader, this might be their spokesperson. They sent a letter to the American people. Let me just read you the top of this letter. And this is posted on social media. They posted it on X Twitter. And they said, to the people of the United States, they're calling this a Kobesi letter, and to all of those who emit a flood of distortions and manufactured narratives, continue to seek the truth and aspire to a better life. They start by saying that Iran is one of the oldest continual civilizations in human history. Despite its historical and geographic advantages at various times, Iran has never in its modern history chosen the path of aggression, expansion, colonialism, or domination. That feels very pointed, maybe focused at Israel. What do you make of the fact that Iran is now going... They're posting meme videos with like hip hop music on social media. They're writing direct letters to the American people, and they perceivably are winning the war.
Well, look, the Iranian regime is awful. I mean, we all know that. They killed tens of thousands of their own protesters, which is something I was covering on my show before this war began. I had so many friends who are Iranian American who were hopeful that one day they would have freedom and democracy again.
Yep.
I think what gets lost a little bit, it even wasn't brought up there. Iran was a democracy from 1941 to 1953. The United States of America ended that democracy. In 1953, the Iranian people wanted Mossadegh, and he was their leader. And then what happened is he nationalized the oil companies of the British and the U.S., really the British interest. So what happens is the Shah then goes to Britain and England and says, and the U.S. says, put me back in power, because he was forced out, and you can have your oil wells. And what do? They get rid of him, and then they install the Shah, who becomes the Shah all the way through 1979, who, with the help of the CIA and U.S. military, oppress and kill the Iranian people. Our CIA trained the Iranian regime how to torture people. The people of Iran know this history. So when we talk about now Trump, people rise up. We were the ones that were involved in helping torture those who wanted democracy under the Shah. We helped, there's a direct line from the United States intervention and the Ayatollah coming to power in 1979, because not everybody in the country wanted an Ayatollah. They just wanted the end of the oppressive regime of the Shah. So this is an important history, because it's not remote. Hundreds of years ago, it is just 20 and 30 years ago. There are people alive who know our history. They can't trust us in Iran. So him appealing to us, look, it's a game, it's a war, it's propaganda, all that kind of stuff. I don't think he's going to win me over. He's not going to get me at hello. But it's a situation where we've been bad actors. And the more you know about our history in the region, you understand we are not viewed as an honest broker. We're not good as a good faith actor. Sadly enough, we are a bad faith actor who've caused a lot of problems to the Middle East and continue to this day doing that very thing in the name of the United States of America. And it's stunning, and it's got to end. But I don't know when it's going to.
Well, I mean, the reality is, too, we shot down, and apparently by accident, allegedly, over the same Strait of Hormuz, a civilian airliner, right, in the 1980s. Iran still remembers that, too. Like, there's a bad history. And we have this history, Ambassador Jenkins, across the world, right? I was just last night, the other day, I was watching a lot of YouTube yesterday, but I was watching the rise of Mobutu in my father's country, the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's because we got rid of, and the CIA helped kill Patrice Lumumba, who was their sort of Mossadegh, right? We said, well, he's not good enough. He's asking the Soviet Union for help, trying to quell the sort of try to re-rise of the Belgians who own the country. We don't like him. We'd rather have Mobutu, even though he's corrupt. We did the same thing in Egypt. Egypt had Nasser. We didn't like him because Israel didn't like him. He wasn't playing ball. We'd rather have had, they had a 42 year dictator that we preferred because he played ball. Like this country keeps meddling in the world. And since arms control was the thing that you were focused on when you were in the government, am I wrong to say that some of the things we've done, some of the things the West has done, have driven the desire of countries, and as I think Dean is spot on, this is not a good guy country, Iran, but these people want nuclear weapons, or they want weapons in part because of us, right? And Israel.
Right. And a couple points. Exactly right. We have a tendency, and I'm sure other countries do as well, we have a tendency to start history when we want to start history. We always like to start history when we think it looks advantageous to us. And then we start saying over and over again, oh, this is the bad thing that happened. These are the worst people, with leaving out an entire history of what happened before then. Okay. And so we continue to do that. And, that does a disservice to people in America to really understand what happened. But we just do that all the time. Okay. And then when it comes to the arms control and the nuclear weapons issue, as you know, we've been having discussions with Iran even before the JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which of course Trump pulled us out of in 2018, which was actually working up until that time. And so the question about what Iran wants to do has always been out there after we withdrew, and there was a series of attempts to try to get back to some kind of agreement. And of course, there was a viable agreement on the table before we decided to attack Iran. So the question is, what do they do at this point? There are people who are saying, well, they might actually really go for it now after what they've seen. We wanted to always, through arms control and diplomacy, try to encourage them not to want to go and develop a nuclear weapon, to find ways that we can find agreements so that doesn't happen. But now what we've done is actually go in the direction of possibly giving them even more reason to want to develop a nuclear weapon. So we'll see. We'll have to see what happens after this. But like I said, it'll be interesting because they don't trust us now, like everyone else doesn't trust us now, particularly since they had something on the table. And what did we do? We bombed them. Yeah. So is that going to help us in the long run? It's questionable.
Yeah, very, very questionable. I will just note, just for some updates here, that Donald Trump apparently is going on in a wild posting spree, raging about fraud, crooked Democrats, saying that he's going to make a fortune in oil. He's apparently on a tear, just so you know what your toddler president is doing at this moment. Before I let you go, Ambassador, I want to ask you, just as somebody who was working in government, about this Pete Hegseth sort of firing spree, where he seems to be firing every woman and person of color, particularly Black officers who were in line to become first one-star generals. He's now also cashiered another senior official who tried to stand in the way of that. His name is General Randy George, who is the guy that you see in the center there. He's now thrown him out because he tried to get in the way of this firing spree of just getting rid of anyone who isn't either a white male or a sycophant to Trump. Two of the other firees you can see there. What do you make of that?
I make two things of that. First of all, there's the issue of his issues really with Black people and with women, and basically anyone who's not a white male. And so that has its own story in terms of who he wants to throw out, who he doesn't want to promote. That's one issue. The other issue is anyone who's not going to agree with what he wants to do. And he has his mind set on what he wants to do in Iran. And what you should do, I would imagine, as a Secretary of Defense, is listen to your military officers. They've done war games on these things. They've been thinking about this issue for years. They already knew about the concerns about going into Iran. They knew that the first thing what they would do was close off the strait. I mean, this was not rocket science. And they've been telling them, I mean, this is something that was understood in the military for years. And I was in the military in reserves and worked on WMD issues there. So you listen to your military because they've been through all of this. And I would just like to say one last thing is, I've had a lot of opportunities to work with generals and admirals, and I have a lot of respect for those individuals. It doesn't matter where they come from, what the background is, they have experience and they remember things and they know what they're doing. I'm sure there's one or two that may not be great, but for the most part, if you're going to go to war, you listen to the folks who know what they're doing. And then once you reach the level of admiral and general, you have gone through a lot. You don't get there that easy. So it's unfortunate that he's letting go people who have experience.
And imagine, just you put this next one, imagine being cashiered by someone who tweeted about and lifted the suspension of chopper pilots who decided, military chopper pilots who decided to buzz Kid Rock's house for fun on No King's Day and thinking that is normal. I'm just going to read this piece that was written about Pete Hegseth that I think is actually probably one of the best descriptions of him that I have seen. And it says, quote, with no management experience or strategic background, Hegseth has the chance to remake the U.S. military in his image, an image and vision roughly equivalent to what you would expect from a 13-year-old boy who had logged too many hours playing Call of Duty on the couch. Ambassador Bonnie Jenkins, I will not make you join in that criticism of him. I will take that upon myself. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. Dean, we're keeping you we're forming the human chain around you for a little while. Thank you very much. Dean, this guy really does act like a teenager and he thinks this is a game. He did get pushed out of the National Guard because of his bad behavior. He apparently had some drinking problems. It is embarrassing for us as a nation for that to be our Secretary of Defense, calling himself the Secretary of War.
First of all, I think if the war continues to go badly, he gets fired, like Pam Bondi and Christy Hill.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a chance for that scapegoating of that. And Pete Hegseth has to know it. I read right before we came on air, HuffPost was reporting at the Pentagon Chapel today for Good Friday, they only allowed Protestant services, not Catholic. And in the email sent out, it said there will not be Catholic services. And Catholics were quoted in the article saying they're telling us Catholics need not apply here. And what people don't get, for the right-wing white evangelicals, not black, but right-wing white evangelicals, they have a hostility towards Catholicism. Reverend Jeffers, who was in Donald Trump's inner circle in the first term, had called Catholicism like birth from Satan. This is a view of the evangelicals. They don't just hate Muslims. They hate both sides of my family. Like, I'm Muslim, but they don't like the Catholics on my mom's side either. So you've got Pete Hegseth now, who is not a Christian nationalist. He's an evangelical nationalist. It's just for one sect of Christianity in today's event with the Pentagon. Because I thought for sure that Pete Hegseth would respond. That's not true. There's no response from him whatsoever to the story that's getting more and more traction now. It's all true. Because there was an email saying there will only be Protestant services, parentheses, not Catholic ones, sent to people in the military at the Pentagon. And they said this has never happened before. So it's not like this always happened. This happened because that's what Pete Hegseth wants. He is so exclusive that you have to be part of his ilk, his tribe, and everyone else. We're the enemy. We're tolerated, demonized, thrown out. If you're black, if you're a woman, if you're Catholic, if you're a Muslim, you are beneath him. So he is a supremacist in his own right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, his ilk are incompetent, stupid, juvenile assholes. So there are only a certain number of those in his ilk.
We have the incompetence is from the top. It's Trump and Hegseth. You've got, as the ambassador just said, and we heard every military expert say, where Donald Trump said, no one thought Iran would fire missiles at the neighboring countries or close the Strait of Hormuz. I didn't serve in the military, and I knew they would do that.
I knew. Raise your hands in the chat if you knew. I think anyone with a working access to Google knew the first move is close the Straits of Hormuz. If you know anything about Iran, the one thing they control where that oil goes, and that oil goes through the Straits of Hormuz. There are people making TikToks who knew.
There are influencers who are like 16 in high school going, they're going to close the strait. And when you start the war by killing the leaders and saying this is existential threat to your whole life and everyone in the regime, then they're going to do everything to stay alive. And how do you not know that? And the level of incompetence, it's not just Trump. Hegseth is implicated in all of this. And I am disappointed the Democrats have not called this what it is, an unconstitutional war that demands impeachment and removal of Donald Trump. Forget you don't have the votes. On day one, I was saying on my show, on day when we had special coverage on Saturday, he didn't go to Congress. Congress has the exclusive power to declare war. We're at war. Trump's speech Wednesday, Joy, he referenced having patience, and he cited World War II and the Korean War and Vietnam War. Let's have patience. It's only 32 days. He didn't cite excursions that we went in. He cited wars. We are at war, and it's an illegal, unconstitutional war, and Trump should be impeached and removed. And the timidity of so many Democrats who won't talk about this is off-putting. It is why Democrats are not polling well, because the lack of fight of some. There are some great fighters, but the lack of fight of all of them is so disappointing when the stakes are this damn high.
Yeah, indeed. And, Hakeem Jeffries was talking about restoring pieces of legislation today. He did a press conference, and I didn't understand why he was saying it. One thing before we go to one more sponsor, this is the level that we're at. A stripper, Dean, a stripper is the person that revealed to many people that the deployments were going to happen. We're going to play a little tiny bit of this real quick. Jason, please.
At a strip club next to several military bases, and something I have noticed lately is all the military guys are coming in and they're spending all of their money, and they're just it's sad. They're kind of depressed, and they're just coming in oh yeah, we're gonna have fun. We're getting, what is it called? Deployed? We're getting deployed next week, or this is happening. I don't know. I don't want to spread misinformation or anything, but it's just a lot of them are really kind, and to see these young guys that look like my pinky toe, they're like fetuses coming in and then dancing with them and then being bye, and then it's actually making me emotional. It's fucked up.
Dean, I think she would make a better Secretary of Defense than Pete Hegseth.
She's going to be nominated for Attorney General by Donald Trump.
I think she'll be.
Replace Pam Bondi.
Any day now. Any day now. All right, let's take a really quick break before we continue talking with Dean, because this is one of our brand new sponsors that we really absolutely love. And let me let you all know that this show, the Joy Reid Show, is brought to you by Wild Alaskan Company. So when was the last time that you truly trusted the seafood that you brought home? I used to actually question everything: the nutrition, the taste, the sustainability. You really want to know that it's sustainable and that it's not destroying the earth, right? Wild Alaskan Company is the best way to get wild-caught, perfectly portioned, nutrient-dense seafood delivered directly to your door. And just trust me, you have never tasted fish this good. So we got our first box about 2 weeks ago, and we've been digging in to the perfectly portioned salmon, the cod. We did a pollock. I did a pollock over pasta with pesto sauce last week, baby. It was to die for, which I can invite y'all over. It was amazing. And what I love about Wild Alaskan is that the seafood is 100% wild caught, never farmed. It means no antibiotics, no GMOs, no additives, just clean, real fish that supports healthy oceans and fishing communities. The seafood is nutrient rich. It's full of flavor. Wild Alaskan fish is frozen off the boat to lock in taste, texture, and nutrients like omega-3s. And the sustainability is on point. It's sustainably sourced, wild caught from Alaska. Every order supports sustainable harvesting practices, and your membership delivers flexible shipments, expert tips, and truly feel-good seafood. So if you want to try it risk-free with a 100% money-back guarantee, meaning if you're not completely satisfied with your first box, Wild Alaskan will give you a full refund, no questions asked, no risk. It's high-quality seafood. All you have to do is go to wildalaskan.com/joy for $35 off your first box of premium wild-caught seafood. Not all fish is the same. Great seafood you can trust. Just go to wildalaskan.com/joy for $35 off your first box of premium wild-caught seafood. Thank you to Wild Alaskan Company for sponsoring this episode. Okay, let's get Dean back on the stage. Dean, we're going to go through a real quick rapid round with you here. Sure. I've got to hear your thoughts on Brian. Brian Nome, it's Bryon. So as a Caribbean, I have to call him Brian. Right. Apparently, he likes a big breasticus on himself. What's up?
This doesn't even make sense. And look at the dog. I can't believe the dog's alive.
The dog is like, what's happening?
The dog's like,
I didn't even notice the dog.
I'm glad Christy hasn't shot me. I mean, he's just happy to be alive. It's like a hostage situation.
He's hiding from Christy. Jason just said he's hiding from Christy saying, does this mean I'm going to get shot in the face?
Right. This is not good. Like, what have I seen here? I don't know what this fetish is. I'm not well versed. It's called bimbofication. Bimbofication.
It's where men want to be, that apparently there's a model, stripper, whatever, who was paying he was paying her $5,000 to dominate him while he was dressed like this. And he wants to be dominated and dress up in exaggerated, like a Barbie. So these men who are into bimbification, they want to dress like a Barbie and have exaggerated boobs, exaggerated butt, put on like a hot. He wants to be sexy, Dean. He wants to be sexy.
Look, next he'll be at the strip club saying how men are tipping him. They're going off to deployment, that type of thing. Just like it'll be like the stripper in the TikTok video. I want Brian, that's his name, to be happy.
Yes.
So
yes,
be your best version of yourself. If this brings you joy, go do it. I'm not here to judge you.
No.
Shooting a dog, what Chrissy Noem did, is so far. That's bad.
It's so true.
But Chrissy Noem, and she didn't know about this. Like, what are the balloons there, Brian? Oh, nothing. And then
they're off center. Like the nipples are going one way and the other. They're not always going in the same direction. He's not even sometimes. But you know what? He's living his best life. I'm with you on. I still think that even with this, Brian is I would rather have Brian in charge of the Department of Homeland Security dressed like this than Kristi Noem, who is a liar, called a perfectly, decent, normal two protesters in Minneapolis terrorists after they got shot and killed by their own government, who the indigenous tribes in her state in South Dakota didn't want her on their land. Like, Brian could dress like that, and I'd still rather have him be Department of Homeland Security.
You could go on ICE raids, and some people would be like, I'm going to self-deport because I don't know what's going on.
I'm leaving.
Burn.
I'm out of here. I'm gone.
I gotta go.
Okay, let's talk about this race because you talk about Democrats. So I promised this on my social media that I would do it. So Steve Cohen, who's 76 years old, is facing a primary challenge from somebody that a lot of us really love. He's one of the Justins, Justin Pearson. He's only 31 years old. So it's a 76-year-old versus a 31-year-old here. And this is the kind of change that Democrats have to start preparing themselves for, right? That the younger crowd is going to come along and they're going to ask these seniors to step aside and give a new guy a chance. What do you think?
I just had Representative Pearson on my show 2 days ago. So I just chatted with Justin, who I've always a big fan of, the Tennessee 3. This is someone who's always put himself on the line there. That was to save lives from gun violence. It's hard. Look, there's another side to it. Steve Cohen has served for 20-something years and has done a good job. And at 76, doesn't feel old. I mean, things don't mean what they used to.
No.
So you're going to have to take power. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to give it up. I think some who are really old, who can't function anymore, should give it up. They shouldn't die in office. They should.
Yes.
But I think, Justin could win this race. If not, he'll be positioned to win in 2 years. But the future is coming. I don't subscribe to the philosophy that they got to give it up because for them, this is their whole life. If they can still function and they're still effective, it's fine. If they're not, like Gerald Nadler is my congressman, and he's leaving at the right time. I mean, his functionality probably 2 years ago would have even been better, frankly. But at least he gave it up now, and that was a robust primary that I almost ran, and I ended up not running in it. You had me on the show to talk about it.
Yeah, you're not running. What's happening? What?
There's a Kennedy kid running, and there's a lot of people here's the bottom line. I would have had to raise, everyone I met with, real people who took me seriously, said, well, can you raise $1 million in like 3 or 4 weeks? I go, I've never tried to raise any money, so I don't know how I would do that. I'm like, is there robbing a bank involved in this scheme? And they're like, no. So I'm like, this can't happen. So I started much too late. But even
you can't rob a bank. You're a Muslim. You get deported immediately.
Oh, I'd be gone in a second.
You'd be gone.
So look, I think there's people want fresh faces. I don't believe it has to always be someone younger. It's got to be someone effective and someone who's going to bring the fight. I want fighters. If you're a 60-year-old fighter, I want you over a 30-year-old folder any day of the week. But in this case, Justin Pearson is a fighter, and I like him. He's really impressive. And I think he will be a member of Congress. If he doesn't win this time, I think 2 years from now, I think Steve Cohen will get the message. And he served, honorably for us. He's been a good fighter. He's been in the media a lot, Steve Cohen, and it's up to him when to go. But the decision might be made by the voters coming
by the people. Well, I will say, and I won't get into the details of it, but Justin is also a nicer person. Just in my personal experience with the two of them, he's old and he's a little brusque and he's not a personable chap, Steve Cohen.
I like Justin very much. He was very
Justin is very personable.
Great on Palestine. I used to not ask candidates running for Congress about Palestine because it was never an issue.
Yeah, now you got to ask them.
Now I do, all of them.
Every time, me too. And AIPAC.
I'm like, you coming on my show, let's talk Palestine. And that's
Amen. And some of them get super uncomfortable, but I'm like, you taking that AIPAC money? We got to ask. Okay, I got to play this before we go, because it is for the Christians, it is a big holiday weekend. But Donald Trump brought the apostates to the White House. Let's let y'all listen to Paula White and her apostasy.
And Mr. President, no one has paid the price like you have paid the price. It almost cost you your life. You were betrayed and arrested and falsely accused. It's a familiar pattern that our Lord and Savior showed us. But it didn't end there for him, and it didn't end there for you. God always had a plan. On the third day, he rose, he defeated evil, he conquered death, hell, and the grave. And because he rose, we all know that we can rise. And sir, because of his resurrection, you rose up.
Oh God.
Because he was victorious, you were victorious.
Oh Lord.
And I believe that the Lord said to tell you this.
I can't listen to no more of that. I'm gonna get struck by lightning. That is heresy.
Yeah, exactly. What is that? Donald, first of all, you see how uncomfortable Trump was? Because she invoked the Lord and Jesus. Folks, there are people saying, when is the Lord going to call Trump home? It's not the Lord. It's the devil. At some point, the devil is going to be like, Donald, you've done more damage than I could ever hope. Thanks. Come on home. I think you know your friend Jeffrey Epstein. And they're going to be hanging out in the green room down there, the pool room, whatever they're going to be doing. But this, and you know who was standing next to her? Reverend Jeffress, who is the guy who called Catholicism a religion comes out of Satan's womb. That's how they are an anti-Catholic movement, these evangelicals. They're delusional.
They're delusional.
Like someone should have come and put her into a special room that was padded. That's insane. Involved Trump is like Jesus. Trump's the devil.
The thing that's so interesting is they are Christian Zionists and Christian nationalists, and the Catholic Church. I think one of the other things they don't love about the Catholic Church is that the Catholics are led by a Pope Leo, who is vehemently against what Israel is doing to Palestine. He's against apartheid. He's against genocide. He's against these attacks on immigrants. So the Catholic Church is sort of stepping back into its own as an institution that cares for the poor, the sick, and the immigrant. And that don't work well with Christian Zionists and Christian nationalists who are aligned on genocide and aligned on Israel's wild greater Israel plan and all that stuff. So I think that's part of the alignment too. One more thing before we let you go, Dean. This is D4. Look at this. So Pam Bondi didn't even get to get out good before they threw her portrait in the TRASH. They threw it in the garbage, Dean.
Pam Bondi, she did everything for Trump. She protected him when she was AG of Florida from 2011 to 2019. Trump University. She never investigated Jeffrey Epstein, who was running a child rape ring and a trafficking ring in the state when she was AG. And she talked all about bringing down traffickers because she was protecting Epstein and Trump and all the other powerful men. She was Trump's lawyer at the impeachment. She protected Trump everywhere. Now Trump blames her for Epstein. Nobody. Trump, you became friends with Epstein in the 1980s. Right. She was a child then. You know, it is all on you. And now her picture's in the waistband. It's perfect. Perfect. I love it.
The Dow is $50,000. The Dow.
Bodies in the garbage. It's unbelievable that this happened this quickly. I saw this online. I'll assume it's true. If it's not, we don't care.
And Ms. Now reported it. We can say that Ms. Now confirmed it, and she did a good job. So Ms. Now says it's true. So I'm going to go and believe her.
I think this is a perfect setting. Now you got time. And what is Pam Bondi? Maybe you heard Kristi Noem tour with Kristi Noem's husband?
No, she's according to Lev Parnas, which was also confirmed by our early guest, who's a former prosecutor. She's going right back to her old consulting firm because one of her main clients is Qatar. So she's just going to go get rich. She's probably going to be taking in $1 million a month or something doing lobbying. She's going to go right back to the lobbying firm where she was making money before. Maybe she can get Iran to not bomb Trump's plane because, you know, eventually they're going to bomb that plane. If that plane hasn't left Qatar, it's going to get it.
Why do you think Trump didn't go to China during the war? You know, I'm sure they were really like, do you really want to fly across the world?
He said, not with the guy from the real world in charge. No, nobody want to fly with that fool in charge. Who hired him? You, sir. You hired him.
It is remarkable. I just want to know what we wake up to tomorrow because there was some national security meeting they were having in the White House late this afternoon. Are they going to send boots? Are they not? I'm
assuming.
Today's Good Friday, a great Friday when we wake up and Trump's not president anymore. That's a great Friday that I'm looking forward to.
You can get an amen on that one. Dean Obeidallah, thank you so much for being here. Wishing you a fantastic weekend, and we always appreciate getting to spend so much time with you, my friend. Thank you so much. You should rethink running for office. You'd be great.
One day, inshallah.
One day. When we can find some paying bondi money for you. Thank you very much, Dean. All right, everybody. Before we go, we're going to do our moment of joy. We're going to sneak it in here. This one was a lot of fun, and it stars two of the former candidates for New York mayor. Go.
Dr. Shirdish Cleawa.
Dr. Cleawa, you said?
Yeah, Dr. Cleawa.
I'm looking at your name here on the chart. I don't even want to try to pronounce it. Hey, is it okay if I just call you the Z-Man?
Yeah, that's fine. You look very familiar, though.
Were you ever riding the trains in the wee hours of the morning from like 1980 to 1991?
I wasn't, how do you say this, Dr. Cleawa, alive.
Okay, young buck. So you're here for a cat allergy shot, huh?
Yes, sir. My wife and I are adopting a cat.
It never stops with one or two. Oh, no, it doesn't.
That was actually hilarious. But let me read you what local station New York One wrote about the skit. A spoof video featuring Mayor Zohran Mamdani seeking cat allergy shots from Curtis Sliwa was met with laughter at Saturday night's Inner Circle show, but some Republicans in the room were not amused. The skit featured Sliwa, the cat-obsessed Republican, he owns like 40 cats or something, preparing to administer shots to Mamdani, the cat-allergic socialist who plans to bring a kitten to Gracie Mansion. Some New York Republicans, including billionaire John Katsimedes, called the spoof upsetting and disappointing. Katsimedes said he already believed Sliwa was trying to help Mamdani beat Andrew Cuomo, and that seeing Mamdani and Sliwa's joint satire video only supported that theory. Sliwa refused pressure from Katsimedes and former Governor David Patterson to drop out of the 2025 race for mayor and denied any collusion with Mamdani. Mamdani said, and this is a quote, "The only conspiracy is two people who have a sense of humor and are willing to make fun of themselves." It's so dumb to be mad about that. They were raising money for charity. That's what the dinner was about. Get over it. Let these people live. And that is a beautiful show, a display of how politics does not have to mean that you cannot walk back from a fight and still be friends. They both love New York. They're both big time New Yorkers. And I think it's actually lovely that they got together and did that fun show. As long as neither of them is a fascist, I'm good with them making up after the election is over. Thank you all for tuning in. We want everybody to make sure that you get out there and help us, please, to get to 500,000. That is our goal. We're trying to get to 500K by our birthday. It's not easy. It's a big climb, but if you could tell 5 friends, arrive with 5, just tell 5 friends, send them the link, and tell them to go ahead and subscribe on YouTube or Substack, or wherever you subscribe, or Twitch. We want our Twitchies to grow too. So just get 5 friends to subscribe. That's what we're asking you guys to do. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Easter to those who are Easter people, who are Christians, who are actually celebrating. If you're celebrating Passover, happy Passover to you. And we will see you on Monday on the next The Joy Reid Show. Goodbye.
Getting back to the basics, grassroots level. Let me dig a little deeper with the shovel. Plenty can't tell the forest from the trees, and I'm hard to detect, like a black hole in the dark. Injustice anywhere, it's a threat to justice everywhere. Let me make this clear, I got a bone to pick, and I'll never fear the threat of poverty. They don't want to talk about it, they rather party, so I'm a real talk about it, for sure.